welcome to a brand new episode of Tre'Davious podcast. And I am your host, Calvin. I'm running solo today because my crew, they work really hard. But today's episode is kind of personal because I'm bringing somebody on the show today who I have known since I was a little kid. And as most of you know, if you listen to this podcast, I didn't have the best upbringing in the world. I was what they would say a troubled kid, but I don't like the word troubled. I was misunderstood and misguided. And so even though my parents were there were some days that they weren't there. And in those days they weren't there, I was not the best child of my best behavior because so much built up anger, frustration, and you're going through hormones. And, so much things are going on during adolescence. And so you really look for that guidance. And what my mom and dad did a lot, they made sure that we stayed in the books and stayed educated because even though we went to a predominantly, we lived in a black neighborhood, my mom made sure we went to a predominantly white school because it had a better education. Not to knock our black community, but we had a better education. And that wasn't just me. A lot of parents do that so that their kids can have the best education. And we can talk about the education system later when it comes to minorities. But my mom and dad made that sacrifice to get us to a better education. So that was same with our church life. We went to church and they saw that we were, kids, but at the same time, they got to provide us opportunities that we would never thought we would see. So with that being said, every summer in middle school and high school, I would go to this camp in Oklahoma. And there was some people that I never thought I would meet. And one person that I did meet that was kind of my best friend throughout childhood. Every summer, I had to make sure she was there. Was our guest today. Help me welcome Coach Rachel of Swoosh Athletics. Coach, how you doing there, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. That was kind of like a long intro, but I had to give you the proper, And the thing is that I have not talked to Coach Rachel, I guess, on the phone or virtually in 12 years, 12, 13 years. It's been a long time, Rachel.
It has been a long time. You still look the same.
Chubby cheeks, a little gray hair everywhere, but, and you
Oh,
still look.
we've all aged a little.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of you what you've been doing, and like I said, this is like a reunion, y'all. So you have to forgive me. This is supposed to be a good interview, but this is a reunion. This is my best friend, like at camp. So I mean, Rachel, we had some good times at camp, right?
Oh, most definitely. Church camp was one of those things that you just met so many incredible people, and still to this day, I may not speak to a lot of those people every day, but just keeping up with them on social media has been really cool to see their kids grow and all the things that they've done with their life. So yeah, we had some incredible times and met some incredible people.
Yeah, and then one thing about Rachel is that like we used to call her Pope Joy because that was her last name. So, and then like her brother, we used to call him Pretty Boy because it was like always like the pretty boy at camp. I know he don't want to hear that, but
Yes,
that's
his hair.
he was always the pretty boy. But that was Rachel, man. I always wanted to like one thing about Rachel, she used to beat me up on the basketball court. Like Rachel could hoop. I don't know if you remember those days, but I used to try to go against you in basketball, man. But Rachel would be so tough on the basketball court. Like she wouldn't play with the girls. Like she would play with the guys because she was that good. And you was taller than most people too. Like you were taller than most people at camp. But man, like just we had some good times, Rachel. Like I really do miss that friendship that we had
Yeah.
because it really helped me out. But for those who don't know you, like I do, just tell us. Like first off, just tell us, who you are and where you're
Okay.
from.
So I am Rachel Jones, and I am from Wyoming, or actually was born up there, but we moved a ton growing up between Wyoming, Oklahoma, and Texas. I'm currently in Oklahoma, which is where my nonprofit and my youth sports organization are both located. I have two kids, one son, one daughter, 9 and 10 years old. So I feel like I'm getting on up there in age. Right, your face said it all.
I'm sorry, but it's like, man, we got kids now. Like,
I
wow.
know. I know. We're definitely getting to the point where like we're growing up and they're growing up, and every time they hit a new milestone, I just feel a little bit older. So
And you say that I don't look, I look the same, but like, no, seriously, you look the same. Like, You
Do I?
seriously look the same. Like you you're 15 years old. Seriously.
Oh, thank you. I still get ID'd sometimes, but otherwise they don't ID me, and I'm like, I am 31 years old.
Oh wow! And so it is crazy because like we haven't seen each other so long. So me calling you Jones now is like I can't do
I
it.
know.
I'm trying like so hard to because I guess your old last name like sticks out and it's like man that's just now she's a
Yeah.
Jones and I'm like man so but like you said we kept up with each other so much throughout
Yeah.
these years. I'm glad you're one friend that from church camp that I did not lose contact with because like you're to me in my definition growing up you always kept it real, you know, and that's kind of one thing about you that you did at a young age that I've noticed you've been able to carry out, you know, because like you were not like brother and sister back in the day. You were always just
Yeah.
like thick as thieves. We were always together and always hanging out and stuff. But you know, we used to butt heads too. But it's like after all these years, we're still like kicking it and hanging out or talking to each other on social media. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you know to see that that humbleness and that realness has transformed you into the coach Rachel and the motivator that you're trying to be to the youth right now is what we're going to talk more to Coach Rachel Jones about what she's doing in the community and how she's giving back to those less fortunate. Stay tuned. This is the Straight Up Show podcast on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
I think straight up means to be able to speak in a way that is straight up, to be honest, and to speak your truth.
Raw, uncut, you know what I mean? It's blunt, you know, straight to the point. This what it is.
It's just a place to be open and honest, and that's what I appreciate most about it. And it provides a place for community members to come together and just be straight up with each other about things that are going on in the world because it affects all of us.
Unfiltered, raw, with all the cursing that Calvin does.
Straight up is just being real, telling it like it is, you know, being you.
Being solid, being who you are, no matter what it is, no matter what situation you're faced with. All right, this is who you are. It really speaks to me saying it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. Straight up.
All right, welcome back to your Straight Up Show podcast. I am your host, Calvin, joined with the lovely and talented Coach Rachel Jones, all the way to Oklahoma. Thank you once again, Rachel, for coming on the show. She is the coach of Swoosh Athletics. Did I say it right? Swoosh?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
You got to get the hand gesture though. It's
The
swoosh.
Swoosh
Yeah, there
Athletics.
you go.
Hey, make sure y'all support that group. We're going to talk more about them here in a second. But she is not only the coach of Swoosh Athletics, she is also one of the co-founders of Youth First. And so, as we talked about earlier, me and Rachel met at church camp, a place that I went to get away from the daily and the summer times, living in the projects in the hood, to where I think that saved my life if I didn't meet people and diversify myself like Rachel. And it was these new opportunities that I didn't know that existed where I come from. And to meet people like Rachel who kept it real and just was my best friend, you know, because where I come from, we don't have those opportunities. So Rachel, you know, you're doing something kind of like that. You know, you're giving back to the community with You First and Swoosh Athletics. So just tell us about, you know, first off, what is Youth First?
So, Youth First is a nonprofit organization that I founded, and its goal is to partner the concepts of books and ball. So, right now, our goal is to help provide books into youth sports organizations and help encourage reading and literacy among young athletes.
Okay, and that's pretty much needed because I mean, I like me, and I'm not trying to dig at any of my old teachers, but I know because I did play sports, like education was not the focal point of it. Because if I go
Yeah.
back to high school, I was a dumb kid. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I didn't care about school. I care about sports. So, you're trying to get these children involved in education outside of just sports, right? And so,
Yeah.
uh, what was your thinking of coming up with this? Like, what made you do this? And like, is it because of the community you're in, or something that you always wanted to do? Like, what made you do this?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of both of the community that I'm in, as well as just, my own personal experiences growing up. As a young athlete, there is a lot of emphasis put on athleticism and doing well in the sport. And sometimes that is in lieu of the education, or making sure that young athlete or that young kid is doing well in reading and math and those concepts that really matter. And so there was a lot of that growing up, where teachers or the environment wasn't really putting a ton of emphasis, or the right type of emphasis, on education. I even remember growing up where, if as long as I came to class early, if it was a class I was struggling in, you were passed anyway. You were given those good grades anyway, because the sports aspect, because of what I brought to the table on the court. And so that was a part of it. But as I began to have my own children, and really thought about the environment that I would like them to grow up in, and like different pillars that were really important to me, Youth First was born from that. It didn't start out as a books and ball mission. It actually started out as wanting to provide them with different opportunities, like music, tech and coding, other things like that that are not really as readily available to our youth. But when I started coaching, and just all of the emphasis that was really placed on the athleticism there, I actually started to bring in books into our gym, right, during practice. And I was getting a ton of pushback from parents about, the kid needs to put down the book and pick up the ball. And it just was like flashbacks to childhood, of all of the times that I shouldn't have gotten that A, that I shouldn't have gotten that B, that I really needed the extra help in the classroom. But because of what I brought to the table, like I said, on the court or the track or cross country, whatever the sport was at that time, you're given that pass, which really doesn't set you up for success. So a lot of different experiences from childhood, and then becoming a coach and really seeing the same type of environment being conveyed to my young athletes really helped kind of push me in the direction for our first initiative for Youth First, being books and ball.
And that's going true, because I know in Oklahoma, y'all got some ballers out there. Y'all got some
Yeah.
you got some the Trey Youngs and the Blake Griffins, and
Yeah.
y'all really bring some ballers out of Oklahoma. So I give y'all that, and I definitely understand this, because I I had a 23% in English my senior year in high school, but we was in the playoffs. So my teacher was like, "Look, I'm gonna give you a C and call it a day." So I had
Yeah.
23% in English. That's bad, and so
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were taking this initiative, especially with your children, which to me is still kind of, as somebody who personally knows you, to see you have like children of your own. And but right now it's kind of like, wow, just to see you as a mother now, but you're really like you're really doing doing more than hands on. You're teaching other children. I know that somebody who comes from the projects like myself, what kind of children are you working with? Like, is it just children in the community, or just regular rec kids, or what kind of kids are you dealing with?
We deal with kids from all walks of life. So when athletes come into the sports organization, everyone is welcome. If athletes come and they're looking for books, or they're looking to go out to one of our free community bookcases or something, it's open to everybody. So regardless of the walk of life that you come from, regardless of where your parents come from or anything, every initiative that we work on is open to the public completely. So any young athlete, any young kid is welcome.
And you said community books. Like, tell us about the community books that you have set up, and how people can go to them, and like just tell us about, like, what was the purpose of the community books that you do?
Yeah, so we actually have two locations. So one of them is in Santa Fe Family Life Center, which is it is actually also a nonprofit, but it hosts a four-court basketball facility. It has, oh gosh, it's got tennis. They actually host and do a lot of major work with our disabled community, so wheelchair basketball, things of that sort. So one of our free community bookcases is there, and it's so interesting. Actually, my group practices there. So Swoosh, my team, we practice there twice a week, and every time I come in, the bookcase is messed up. And that is incredible to me, because the books have been moved and kids have been coming in, and they're picking books off the shelves, they're taking them, they're moving what, anytime you see that the bookcase is messed up, to me that's a great thing, because the kids are in there and they're looking at the books and they're picking books, and I go in and I straighten it and I see there's a couple less books. And so every single time I go in there, it's really cool. And I go straight in the bookcase, and it's like my happy place. So every time I go in, I go fix the bookcase, and I'm like, I love it. So that's one location. And then our second location is at Bell Books Boutique and More, and that is actually a bookstore. So a lot of people are like, why would you put a free community bookcase in a bookstore? And secondly, why would they allow you to put a free bookcase in the bookstore? But the cool thing about Bell is that one, they were actually already providing free books before our program came to their location. So that was already something that they were doing. We chose that location because of how incredible the founders are. So all of the work that they do in the community is so big. And so we really sought them out as partners, as well as sought Santa Fe out specifically as our first gym location. So kids can go into either one of those locations, pick a book. They do not have to return it. It's not something where they need to pay for it. It's not something where they need to bring other books in order to get books. It's open completely. So kids can go in there, pick a book, whatever they like.
Now, like I said, you're a mother of two children, and like with social media being so detrimental to people right now and has so much influence, and like, I'm in a community right now to where we just had a school shooting in one of my neighborhood schools. And
Yeah.
how important, not only as a mother, but as a coach, to get like you teach right now, like what is it, like fifth grade, sixth grade, right? Is it kind of
No, I don't teach.
not teach, but
I
I'm like you
actually,
coach, like
coach. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I coach fourth grade girls.
fourth grade. So like,
Yeah.
and I used to teach, and they always told me that fifth grade is the age you want to just grab them, and like So with
Yeah.
that being said, like how important is it to, I guess, grab those like kids early on so they don't get, I guess, not brainwashed but influenced by social media and what they see. And like me, honestly, I'm one of those people who hate social media because I think, like I said, the kids could be more into books and going outside and being
Yeah.
active. So like how is it important to you as a parent but also a coach to be more involved in these kids' upbringing, especially at that age group that you're at right now?
Well, so social media is one of those things that has just kind of evolved, right? And so we didn't, when we were growing up, have all of these same influences or distractions, or exposure to as many things as kids are seeing these days. Um, for my kids, we actually talk about like the different social media challenges that come up, and we talk about them, why it's important to ask if we're not sure, why it's important to speak to our parents, why it's important not to try some of these challenges because you don't know the outcome. The Oklahoma City community, there was a teen here that unfortunately lost a 12-year-old kid due to one of the challenges. I believe it was called like the blackout challenge or something. 12-year-old boy died attempting the challenge, and that hit our basketball community directly. So we do a lot of talking about social media because of the presence and the influence that it can have, and just talking to kids about using it smartly and making sure that they are talking to their parents or talking to a trusted adult, and asking those questions and not getting wrapped up in the peer pressure aspect of it or how many likes they can get, by doing certain things. So we do a lot of talking about that.
Now, as stated before, like I said, you work very involved with parents, and
Mhm.
whether it's how you coach their children or what you're doing with them. Like, what's some things that you've had to go through, some conflicts you've had on your journey, not only with Youth First, the organization that you have right now, but with Swoosh Athletics? What kind of pushback have you been getting outside of parents say, hey, focus on the athletic part of it compared to
Yeah.
just the books part?
So it's funny because when you're a coach, when you're a parent, hell, when you're an adult, you always have to stay a student of life. And so one of the things that I really try and do is take in any sort of feedback. If there's a conflict, there's a reason for that conflict. Is it a lack of communication on my end? Is it something that I can or should be doing differently or better in order to either teach the subject or coach, whatever it may be in that moment? So I mean, there's always going to be conflicts that arise, but transparency is key. making sure you stay a student of the game always, even as the coach. I tell my parents and I tell people and new coaches that I come into contact with, you will learn from these kids more than they will probably ever learn from you. They teach you how to speak to them, they teach you how to coach them. Just because you coach one kid one way does not mean that you're going to coach the next kid that very same way. And so you really like customize and cater to them because that is the way that they grow. So yeah, I mean, there's conflicts here and there that do arise, but I always self-reflect and make sure that it's something that if I can do it differently or better, that I do.
Do you have any worries at all about anything at all, like just with doing all this at all, like or?
I think one of the things is just finding a balance, right? So all of us as adults attempt to find that balance throughout life of work, any extracurriculars, like in this case, having a nonprofit and having a youth sports organization, having two kids of my own, also having a full-time job. I'm on the school board PTA or the school PTA board. I'm also helping and I am the women's commissioner this year for the Team Oklahoma USA games. I mean, I hold a lot of hats, right? And so making sure that each one is getting everything that they need, like each cup is being filled, especially my two kids. Because my son, I don't know if you know this, but he doesn't play basketball. And so Swoosh Athletics is a youth sports organization, which is primarily where I spend a lot of focus on my daughter and those girls, right? So making sure that I build that balance for my son is very important to me too. Um, so just finding a balance, honestly, is my only worry, and making sure that I can give everything to every single avenue that I'm touching.
I say God bless you because I look at the stuff you do. I'm like, how does she do it? Like, and I feel like I do a lot, but I'm like, you have so many hats, Rachel. I mean, honestly, I think you should run for politics, but that's just me.
Ooh,
It,
wait.
that's just me. I think you should run for politics because people can really grasp it to you. And if you don't know who Rachel Jones is, she is definitely one of those people who really gives back to the community. And you really, I think that's kind of what made our friendship blossom as kids because you didn't know me from shampoo, and that's a little
Yeah,
saying. Sorry, my bad. But that's a little saying that you say, but you didn't know me and all. But like for some reason, like
yeah,
you just because you know where we come from. The kind of people
yeah,
we used to be associated with at camp, and some people weren't the nicest. And especially when it came to race, which sucks, it's stupid, but that didn't bother you. And even though that we're grown ups now, and like we have our own, you yourself have mixed race kids, but
yeah,
just something like that didn't bother you, and like even though something small that you did as being my friend and as kids, that meant a lot to me. You know what I mean? So even though right now most of the kids that you deal with right now are mostly black children, like it's people like you who is not of the same race that's putting your time out that says, you know what, I care. It doesn't matter what you are, and that really does affect people. So I want to say personally, as a friend, a childhood friend of yours, thank you because like being accepted in a community that I didn't know anything about. And Rachel could tell you, I was me and my sister were on the black kids at camp, and so we stood out from the bunch, but like just being accepted, and just
yeah,
we were there for one cause, and so
yeah,
same with Switch Athletics, and like they're there for learning and be coached and have some guidance, and so like that didn't matter, and so I love how you've always had that approach, not only as a kid but now as an adult. Ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen, Coach Rachel Jones, she's making a difference. We have more with Coach Rachel Jones on the other side of the break. This is the Straight Up Show podcast coming back soon.
Here at Straight Up, we know that all lives matter, but historical events have shown that there is an inverse power dynamic between the races in our country. To highlight this, we present our Black Lives Matter merchandise, because let's be real, some of you don't seem to understand that this isn't the organization, but a message. That message: end inequality towards minorities in America. And just in case that's too complicated for you in English, we have the phrase translated into 10 different languages. Visit straightupshowpodcast.com for this and all our other merch. That's STR8 showpodcast.com. Shirts as low as $19.99.
Hey, Calvin here, host of the Straight Up Show podcast. And guess what? We're back bigger and better than ever with new guests, new straight up topics, and a new way to support the Straight Up Show podcast. That's right. You can now support our podcast by becoming a Patreon patron. Straight Up has 4 different tiers that you can choose from, with each tier having their own perks. Your monthly donation helps us produce efficient Straight Up content that you love so much. For more details, visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/Straight Up Show Podcast 318. That's patreon.com/Straight Up Show Podcast 318.
I'm Sultan Salahuddin from Southside Season 2 out right now. Make sure you tune in to the Straight Up Show podcast because that's where it's happening. You dig?
All right, so welcome back to the Straight Up Show podcast. I am joined today by Coach Rachel Jones with Youth First and Swoosh Athletics. Like that's so. I'm telling you, I've known Rachel for a long time, like probably half my life, and I it's still so hard to keep calling you Jones. I'm like, this is so hard to call.
I know.
Because we didn't call you Rachel, we called you Popejoy. So it's kind of like, hey Popejoy, what you doing? Or baby Popejoy, what are you doing? I'm like,
anybody that knows me from that time of my life still calls me Popejoy, regardless.
Okay.
So it's fine.
Okay. I was like, but you gotta be all professional now. Say about your real government
No,
name.
it's totally fine.
And people call me Craig, and I'm like, you know what? Only if you don't want to get shanked, don't call me Craig. I'm just kidding. That's my middle name, so don't call me all that because that means I'm in trouble. But no, we're here.
Funny.
We're here with Rachel. Like I said, a childhood friend of mine. As you know, Straight Up, we like to give back to the community, whether it's in Africa or India. But hey, we're back home this time, and we're giving back this way. Rachel, one of those people. Like I said, I like to have good people around me. She's giving back too, and she is part of Youth First. Can you represent right quick? Can you show us?
Oh, I can. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let me
Youth
see.
First.
Youth
There we go.
First.
Curiosity, opportunity, and community.
There you go.
And so, like I said, we love giving back to the community. She's giving back with books and education with her athletics. So we talked about Youth First and what you're doing to the community and how vital education is to our community, especially our youth. It is great to tackle them early on because they will lose interest with peer pressure or social media. Whatever. We don't want that to happen in our community, especially in the Black and Brown community. Also in any other community as well, but especially that community. But so we talk about the education part. Let's talk about Swoosh. The Swoosh. Let's talk about the team. Like, how did you get into Swoosh Athletics? Tell us about that.
Well, I've actually been coaching for probably about 3 years. I was with a different organization and just made the transition to build something myself. So, oh gosh, maybe 6 weeks ago, we launched Swoosh Athletics, and I brought my 4th grade team with me, and it's been a really incredible experience. Coaching already is really incredible, but to have something of my own that I've built, it's just, it makes the experience that much better.
And so you said this team is for 4th graders, and like, and I see that you travel a lot, right?
Yeah, so we're definitely a competitive travel team. We've been between Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, of course, places like that. Potentially Florida next year for AAU Nationals if it's there. If not, we may end up in Ohio. So yeah, definitely, we love to travel.
And let me ask you a question. I got a nice life. So if right now, even though as big as I am, do you think that you could take me still one-on-one or what? What's up?
Oh, listen. You can't beat me at basketball, okay?
I
need you to know that, okay? Remember back. We reminisced earlier about how I whooped up on you on the basketball court earlier. Just remember those moments,
and
okay? And you'll be good.
And flip-flops. I still remember you beat me in flip-flops. Wow.
Oh, that's funny.
But Swoosh Athletics, like I said, Rachel, I'm glad that you're doing great with this opportunity with these children. So, like, if you had a message to the kids out there, like if you're talking to your kids, your 4th grade girls right now, like those who are just kind of like, I guess, lost when it comes to community and guidance, like what would be a message that you would give not only to these children who are not, because they used to call me a troubled child, and I wasn't troubled, just misguided. So what would be your message to them of motivation or just saying, hey, why education is important to you?
Man, so this is interesting. I have another nonprofit partner that I speak to a lot, and she is so poetic with her words, and that makes everything she says so incredibly powerful. And one thing that she has said to me a lot is find your grounding point, right? Find your why and then push from there. That will always keep you humble. It will always keep you focused. It will always keep you on task. It will always make sure that you remember where you came from and why you started. And one of the things I would probably say to the kids is always remember why it's important to you. Never veer off track because of someone else and what they want you to do. Man, I would tell them to stay confident in everything that they do in life, whether it's fourth quarter, whether it's school, whatever it may be. Stay confident and give it your all. You know, they lace up their shoes the same way you do. They're putting on their uniform the same way you do. So just stay confident and give it everything you got every time.
And how vital is it for, like I said, just I know the parents that get involved, but just how vital is it for our children to be educated going forward? I know you stay on your children about education, but about just
Yeah.
being educated and what it can do for you. Not only because I mean you can make it to the top, you can be a Blake Griffin or you can be a Candace Parker, but like because we all know that you can break your Achilles heel or you can tear a tendon and that's it.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
why is it important to be educated outside of just athletics?
Well, so each level, there's a little bit less of a percent of athletes that go through, right? And so you've got athletes that play, say, in elementary that maybe don't go into middle school to play. You've got athletes that play in middle school that don't go to high school to play. And then once you hit that high school level and try to go into the college realm, it's an even lower percent of athletes that make it on that next level. So whether you go D1, D2, JUCO, whatever route you may take, the percentage is very small. If you think about women's basketball going to the WNBA, the percent is even smaller than it is of male athletes that have the opportunity to go to the NBA. Education is what takes you to that next level. So doing well in school is going to get more colleges to look at you. Doing well in college is great because you're building a career for life. And after basketball, after athletics, there is still a career for you. And that career is not going to be, you can't play basketball till you're 80. You can't play basketball until those things. And so education is a great tool for you to build your life around and to have something to fall back on. It's also great for you to be able to build that career with. So it's really, really vital and crucial for these young athletes to take their education and make sure that it's just as important to them as their athleticism.
Wow. That's so true, and that's like I said, just a lot of these athletes now. Everybody can't be like Shaq and be on every poster board, but just it's very critical, And that I'm glad that you are giving back to the community with not only with Youth First, but Swoosh Athletics as well. With that being said, how can us as a community support not only Youth First but Swoosh Athletics? What do you need from the community, and how can we donate to your nonprofit?
So for Youth First, we are always looking for book donations. So if you have a business, like we actually had an eye doctor that ran a book drive for us. And so they had all of their patients bring in books, and then they donated us probably 100 or more books that came from their community. And so book drives, book donations are crucial to us being able to provide out books in our free community bookcases and across the community, but also monetary donations. So when we partner with these youth sports organizations or into different tournaments and things like that, we're looking to be able to provide books that are catered to the group. So if we're looking to provide books to, say, a team that graduates in 2025, then we need to be able to provide specific books that are great for their age group. So monetary donations are crucial for us to be able to thrive as well. Our website is weareyouthfirst.org. You can donate on there. We have Cash App. We also take checks. So whatever way you want to donate, we probably have the ability to accept payment that way, and or the book drive. So if people are looking to mail books into us, all they need to do is PM us, and we can send an address for them to ship those out to. And then for Swoosh, so we are, of course, a new sports organization, and our young athletes are in need of basketballs for practice. We are going to be needing warm-up gear coming up into the fall and winter season, headbands, things of that sort that really help kind of push those athletes to that next level, training gear, stuff like that. So if anybody wants to donate that way, we don't have a website for Swoosh just yet, but we do have a Cash App, which is just $Swoosh Athletics. And they can reach out to me directly too if they want to provide something that's specific or customized or whatever the case may be. We've had a lot of really incredible people step up to donate our uniforms, our backpacks. We had water bottles that were provided for our team. We had a highlight video that was done and pictures as well. And so it's been so incredible, but we are loving that people are getting involved and stepping up to help our community and our youth grow.
Yep, and like I said, hey, and we'll have all of Rachel's information below on the ticker right now, as you can see. If you're watching this on video, audio, if you see the description on the page, on the description page of this episode, you'll see all of Rachel's contact information and how you can donate not only to Youth First but Swoosh Athletics as well. So, Coach Rachel, it has been a pleasure talking to you today. It has been my, like I said, we are childhood friends, and this is a conversation that I didn't think that I would be having with you, but I love how it's coming full circle to where, you know, just me personally being that project kid who went to a camp where I thought I was looked at differently, and you just said, hey, you know what, I'll be your friend. And here we are, you know, years later, coming back full circle with you still doing that great love and just community and showing how much you love people. So with that being said, thank you, Rachel, not only for being a friend, but also giving back to the community and showing these girls and kids how important education and athletics can be. Hey guys, we want you to join the conversation with us. Make sure you go to our website. Make sure you check out all Rachel's stuff too as well. We'll have all her stuff as well. But until then, you can go to our website at straightupshowpodcast.com. It's STR8UPshowpodcast.com. If you want to go through us to get Rachel a donation, we'll make sure she gets it. If you want to mail us to people back in my hometown and want to give books to Rachel, we'll do that too. But make sure you want to give back to books because education is very important. And, you know, and I'll tell a little story right quick. Tre'Davious White, somebody from the NFL, plays for the Buffalo Bills. I used to cover him a lot when I covered sports in Shreveport. And the fact that he turned down the NFL draft just to stay at LSU because he knows where we come from in Shreveport. Education is not very, it's kind of frowned upon a little bit. It's not easy to come by. So it's people like him and Rachel that put education to the forefront over athletics, but still can be athletic. That is what our community needs right now. And that, you know, instead of just getting out the streets, because, you know, not everybody has a great background. But when it comes to the healthy community, I'm telling y'all, we can make a difference. And you can see people like Tre'Davious White in the NFL. You can see people like the Candace Parkers and especially Brittany Griner. People like those who have these different backgrounds, but they're still making a difference with the health of the community. So we want to encourage you to join the conversation, join the fight. Until then, there's only one rule on our show. You got to be
straight up.
There we go. All right. Yeah.